Hello and welcome to Who's the Bossk? It's a Star Wars podcast from laughingplace.com. My name is Mike Celestino. I am your host. I am the lead Southern California reporter and editorial director for Star Wars content at Laughing Place. This is episode 106 of Who's the Bossk, and we are going to be talking about the fourth episode of Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi on Disney+. And for that conversation, I have invited back on the show my fellow Laughing Place contributor, Chris Rex. Chris, how are you? Thanks for coming back on the show to talk about some more Star Wars with me.
I am good. How are you?
Doing well. Excited to talk about some Obi-Wan Part 4. Like I mentioned, Chris, you're a contributor at laughingplace.com. What have you been putting up there recently?
So right now I am doing a lot of the video game content. So anything, I did Guardians of the Galaxy recently. The most recent one I did was Lego Star Wars, which was fun to play. And then I'm also currently covering just episode recaps of the Orville.
So, the Orville. Oh, the Seth MacFarlane sci-fi show. What did you think of the Lego Star Wars game? What was your review of that?
I was thoroughly impressed with that game. I think they did an excellent job with it. I mean, it's actually the biggest, I mentioned this in the article, but it's the biggest Star Wars game to date. Okay. So that says a lot for itself as well. But yeah, they did a really good job with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can read Chris's review over there on laughingplace.com. Speaking of Laughing Place, filling in for Rebecca in this episode. Rebecca is usually our tech person on these live streams because we are recording this episode live via the Laughing Place YouTube channel. But filling in for Rebecca, who is traveling today, is the other co-founder of Laughing Place and Rebecca's husband, Doobie Mosley. Doobie, thank you for helping out and joining us for this chat.
It is my pleasure to be here. Thank you for allowing me to join you. I know how far down I am on the list, so I'm sorry that it came to this. I also feel it's necessary to mention that Mr. Chris Rex up there also does our Peppa Pig content and an excellent job at that. So thank you, Chris.
Okay, so video games, Peppa Pig, and Orville recaps.
Yes.
Chris's Parents' Guide to Peppa Pig is one of our biggest articles of 2022. So thank you.
Really? Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Is it really?
Yeah.
All right.
That's awesome. No, I'm glad to hear that our Peppa Pig content is getting some clicks for us. Okay, so Chris, this is your second time on Who's the Bossk. That means you've graduated to the 5 Star Wars questions level 2. Are you ready for this?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so level 2 of the 5 Star Wars questions. Number 1, do you have a favorite line of dialogue from a Star Wars movie or TV show?
Yes, I do. And actually, I'm going to do my best Darth Vader impression here.
Great.
All right, so it goes, "You don't know the power of the dark side."
Wow, that may be the best Star Wars impression we've heard on this show. That was fantastic. And I love the use of props there. That's great.
Gotta have a little echo chamber there when you're doing Darth Vader.
I love it. Okay, can't top that. Number 2, which Star Wars planet would you like to live on and why?
Naboo.
Popular choice.
Yeah, I mean, not too hot, not too cold, and there's no sand. So, I mean, there's beaches, but
there's got to be sand somewhere
in terms of Tatooine and Jakku.
Okay, number 3 of the 5 Star Wars questions, level 2. What is your favorite era in the Star Wars storytelling timeline and why? So examples are the Old Republic, which is thousands of years before the original trilogy. You've got the High Republic, which is a couple hundred years before the original trilogy. Then you've got the Fall of the Jedi era, which is the prequel trilogy. Then you've got the Reign of the Empire, which is between the prequels and the original trilogy. The Age of Rebellion would be around the Galactic Civil War and the prequel trilogy. themselves. And then the New Republic falls between the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy. Then you've got the Rise of the First Order around the sequel trilogy. And I also like to include, if you want to choose this, the Legends continuity, which is all those books and novels and comics that came out in the previous canon before Disney bought Lucasfilm, taking place, mostly after Return of the Jedi. So of those choices, which is your favorite and why?
I would have to say probably Age of Rebellion. Just seems like, it's a good time to rebuild a little bit, wasn't not too much to worry about in terms of like Empire and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, and more time to go on adventures.
Okay.
Freely.
I like it. Okay. Number 4. Which Star Wars creature would you like to have as a pet?
I'm gonna say a boga. That's the lizard thing that Obi-Wan rides in I think it's episode 3.
Okay. Oh yeah. When he's chasing around General Grievous.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice. That just seems like a fun thing to have as a pet.
Yeah, any pet that you can use as transportation.
Right.
Is good.
Yeah.
Okay, number 5, fifth and final of the 5 Star Wars questions, level 2. If you were Kathleen Kennedy and you could bring in any filmmaker or author to talk about making something in the Star Wars galaxy, so you could bring in like a filmmaker or author or any kind of creative type person to come in and create a movie or a book or a comic book or anything, a video game, who would you like to see create a Star Wars story?
Well, my first choice would have been Taika Waititi.
Yeah.
But he's already doing one. So
yes,
we get to see what he's going to create. But if I have to choose now, I would probably choose either Neil Blomkamp or James Cameron.
Oh, Neil Blomkamp. Yeah, the District 9 guy.
I think. Yeah. I feel like he would take it like to a darker setting,
Yeah.
And, it would probably be pretty violent for a Star Wars movie because that's kind of what he does. But, and then James Cameron is pretty good at creating worlds. So, I mean, we've seen that with Avatar. So, yeah.
Great. I love those choices. Doobie, are you getting a little just kind of a distortion on Chris's audio?
Are you not hearing it?
I am hearing it.
Okay, yeah. You got a little static, Chris. You didn't when we started, but when you like shifted back, you did. So I don't know if there's anything different.
How about now?
No, it still is.
Okay.
So
I can move my camera. Let's see. Still. How's this? Still hearing it?
Yeah, same.
Scarier visual though.
Okay.
So I mean, I know this is podcast too, Mike. Is this an issue for you? Or are we just gonna?
Yeah, I would say. So, is your iPad plugged in?
It's not current.
I would say, can you try plugging it in?
Should I plug it in?
Yeah. Sometimes I've found that
Okay.
that might affect it.
We'll be back in just a moment, folks. Don't leave us. We got lots of fun. Episode 4.
Hold for editing.
Yeah. And if you listen to the podcast, I have a feeling this will be edited out. Hi, Zach.
1 second.
Hi, Alvaro. Can't wait to talk about episode 4. Watched it twice, including this morning.
Oh, great.
Although I forgot to read your review. Oh,
I thought you said you had read it because you knew that it was
anything changed.
No, you said that in the. No, sorry.
No, it didn't. It didn't help.
What happened?
What can we do?
Do you want him to go back to audio only?
Maybe that would be for the best.
Okay.
We can just leave his visual here and take the audio. No.
Yeah, that might be too complicated.
Go back. All right. So hang on.
Right. Sorry, Chris.
Chris is going to switch devices.
No, it's fine. All right.
One thing to try. Why don't you leave and come back and see if that helps?
Okay.
Close your browser and come back and we'll see if that helps. Sorry, folks. I think if it obviously video, it's nice to be able to see them. But if this doesn't work, we'll just go to audio where we know it's clear.
Agreed.
But yeah, you had mentioned in the Slack that it was one of your favorites, and I remember that you said that other one was one of your favorites from Mandalorian.
Oh yeah.
Go ahead, Chris.
How's this sounding?
Perfect. Never move.
Much better.
Never move.
Don't change anything. Okay, we have fixed the audio issue there, and we're going to move on from the 5 Star Wars questions into Star Wars headlines for the week. Again, there wasn't a ton of stuff because we were still in the wake of Star Wars Celebration just a couple weeks ago, but we did have a new issue of Star Wars, the main Star Wars comic book from Marvel Comics. I thought this was a really good issue written by Charles Soule, and it's all about Princess Leia there. You can see her on the cover going up against basically the Empire's version of Princess Leia named Commander Zara, who's this like ruthless Imperial officer. And this is actually the end of this arc, which I thought was a really satisfying conclusion to this storyline that's been going on for a while. Chris, have you kept up on Star Wars comics at all recently?
I have not. Probably not as much as I should. I kind of fell off the books and everything and the comics when like they made everything not canon, and so I never actually up the comics since Disney has purchased.
Okay.
Yeah, so
that makes sense. Yeah, I know a lot of people felt burned after Disney kind of made the whole expanded universe. They turned it into the Legends timeline. It's not really part of the current canon, so I could understand being hesitant to dive back into all the books and comics that are coming out. But yeah, I really enjoy this comic by Charles Soule. Highly recommend the flagship Star Wars comic from Marvel Comics. We got some news from our friends at De Novo, which is a company that I actually interviewed somebody from there at Star Wars Celebration, and they make these high-end replica helmets. There's the new helmet from Sabine Wren. It's a replica of Sabine Wren's helmet from Star Wars Rebels, and it's available for pre-order now. They actually had this on display in the booth at Star Wars Celebration, but it wasn't yet available. So now it is. You can go to De Novo's website to grab that, and they have a bunch of other helmets. They have a Grogu statue that's available, and it's all kind of, again, it's like high-end collectibles. These are like hundreds of dollars, but I know that there are people out there, especially like cosplayers, who want to have like the highest quality and the closest screen accurate helmets for their costumes. So that's the place to go. De Novo. Okay. Lastly, in Star Wars headlines this week, we're going to get into Obi-Wan Wednesdays, which is the merchandise campaign tied into Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi. Every Wednesday they reveal some more merch tied into the TV series, and this week we found out about retro collection action figures from Hasbro. There's a Lego set, Obi-Wan versus Vader, where you can replicate the scene where Darth Vader kind of burns Obi-Wan Kenobi in that previous episode, which is very dark for a kid's toy. But there you go. I really want that loader droid minifigure. I think that's pretty cool, and that's unique to this set. So I like that. And then Funko revealed the Pop Tala Durith. Wow, Doobie is on top of these images. We are rolling along. Like I barely finished saying it, and it was up there on the screen. So that's cool. And then lastly, there was a plush Lola droid who factored into this week's episode quite a bit. So, oh yeah, My Sunny Saga says they need Lola. Yeah.
Hi, Rebecca. That's my wife.
Oh. She couldn't be on the episode, but she's commenting on the episode.
Oh, she'll hear about it.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, you can get your own plush Lola. Where's that available? I don't remember, but you could go to laughingplace.com to find out on our Obi-Wan Wednesday post. Okay, that's Star Wars headlines. Let's talk about our main topic for this week, which is the 4th episode, just known as Part 4. That's the title, Part 4 of Obi-Wan Kenobi on Disney+. This was directed by Deborah Chow, like all the episodes are, and written by Joby Harold and Hannah Friedman. I did want to point a spotlight at the director of photography, who I forgot to mention by name in the last episode, even though his work in that previous installment really blew me away, and he did a great job in this week's episode too. Chung Hoon Chung is his name. He was the DP, also known as a cinematographer, for a movie called Old Boy that I remember seeing probably 15 years ago. This is a Korean film. They remade it with Josh Brolin. I know Spike Lee made a remake with Josh Brolin, but the original is really, really great. The Korean version. I haven't seen the remake, but this guy's really, really talented. And you can tell he's doing a wonderful job on Obi-Wan Kenobi. Let's talk about Chris's experience with this series so far. Chris, what were your expectations going into Obi-Wan Kenobi? And how did the first 3 episodes live up to your expectations?
I love it. I love this series so far. I think they're doing everything right and everything that you want to see in a series like this. I'm liking the little nods and tie-ins that we're seeing. Seeing a little bit more of Nur, where the Inquisitors kind of live.
Yeah.
The only other time we saw that was in Fallen Order. And so to get a little bit more of that was definitely cool to see, like, on screen. So
yeah, I've been really excited. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm really enjoying it. So they're doing a good job.
I've loved the connections to that video game, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. I think a lot of people are pretty psyched that has felt more, the game has felt more important now that we've seen those characters and locations again in this Obi-Wan Kenobi series. So that's pretty cool. What about you, Doobie? What were your hopes for this show, and how have you been enjoying it?
So as you know, I am not as big a Star Wars fan as anyone else that's ever appeared on Who's the Boss. Did I get Nur right when I showed that picture? Was that the right
Yes,
picture?
you did. That's the Fortress Inquisitorius.
That's a win today. So I loved both Mandalorian seasons. I loved Boba Fett, despite the fact that it received some criticism. I totally loved it. To me, the Disney Plus stuff they're doing on Star Wars, it's just fun to watch. Just like I can rewatch Jedi or Emperor, even Attack of the Clones a bunch of times. It's just fun to have on the screen. Despite my lack of Star Wars knowledge, every episode of every Disney Plus thing they've done so far is fun to have on the screen, except for that one boring Mandalorian where they were in the forest. But putting that aside,
I'm trying to remember which one you mean.
And he like fell in love or something.
Oh yeah, that's actually, I think that might be my least favorite episode. Well.
Other than that, and so Obi-Wan is just more of the fun, and it's fun to have a character that I know already. And that I've seen on the screen in the prequels, and I'm just enjoying the heck out of it. And the fact that they pulled off the switcheroo by not doing Luke, but instead doing Leia, I can't stop grinning about that.
Yeah, I'm really pleased that they misled us in that way. They pulled a little bit of sleight of hand in the marketing for this show and didn't tell us that it was going to be all about Leia, which is a fun surprise. Of course, some people are unhappy when they're surprised by things like that, and it's not what they expected. But I always like being surprised. I don't know why. That I would prefer they do it that way. Let's talk about episode 4, part 4 specifically. Chris, what was your overall reaction to this episode? Now, we're recording this on Thursday, so it just came out yesterday. What did you think of this one when you watched it?
This was a good one. I really enjoyed, like I said earlier, I really enjoyed seeing more of the fortress.
Yeah.
And just getting a little bit more of what's happening there.
Right.
Of course, we see that one chamber with, everyone frozen and dark.
Yeah. We're gonna get into that for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I think this was a great one. I like those episodes where it's kind of like, it's not a heist, but we've got to sneak around. Like we got to be stealthy,
Yeah.
And it makes it more exciting and stuff like that, because you never know like who's going to be behind the next door.
Right. I think it really does feel like a video game in that way, and it gave me a pleasant gave me pleasant flashbacks to playing Jedi Fallen Order, because it really did feel like some of the missions in that game where you're sneaking through the hallways, you're fighting the stormtroopers. Even the part where like the hallway got flooded reminded me a part of Jedi Fallen Order, which I thought was really cool. How about you, Doobie? What did you think of this episode?
This is my favorite episode so far. It had no downtime, no meditating Obi-Wan, which always drives me insane. It was
you're going to get more of that.
It was go, go, go. It reminded me a lot of the prison episode of Mandalorian, which was my favorite episode of all the Mandalorians thus far. Very much a heist episode, as Chris mentioned, and it was just go from start to finish, and then to be great, and then to throw Vader on at the end, doing his Vader stuff. Oh my goodness, it was so good. This was a great episode.
Yeah, I totally agree with you guys. I believe this is my favorite episode of this series so far as well. I think mostly because it just felt really taut to me. It felt like there wasn't a lot of flab in it. They weren't wasting any time. It's just like they got, it was basically like an in and out kind of a rescue mission. And I just loved it. It was exciting. There was a lot of tension, a lot of suspense, and great action and stuff. And we're finally, we're seeing Obi-Wan kind of remember how to be a Jedi, remember how to be Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I think that's paying off the first 3 episodes where his muscles had kind of atrophied, both physically and in the Force. And now we're starting to see him get those powers back. And I think you have to have the beginning to get the payoff in the end. So Rebecca says, I had the sense that since I haven't played Fallen Order, I was missing nods. Yeah, this definitely made me want to go back and replay that game. I might actually go back and replay it like on easy mode, because it's quicker to go through, and you just you get to run around and just wipe out a bunch of stormtroopers. There were some tricky parts in that game for sure. Okay, let's go through the episode kind of beat by beat and give our thoughts. So the episode begins with Obi-Wan basically injured and burned from the previous episode where he got in that fight with Darth Vader. And these freedom fighters take him to the planet Jabim, where they put him in a bacta tank. And we get this kind of a montage where they're cutting back and forth between Obi-Wan Kenobi in the bacta tank healing and Darth Vader in his own bacta tank doing the same thing. And they're kind of drawing this parallel there. What did you guys think of that?
I enjoyed that. I enjoyed this kind of connection that we're seeing between the two of them, because that's important. I think these two have a huge history together, and to see them kind of have this connection through the Force, I think is very important to see on screen.
Yeah, somebody was comparing it. I forget if it was in the previous episode of this podcast or somebody was comparing it to the connection that Rey and Kylo Ren have in the sequel trilogy. But I do think it's similar, that Obi-Wan and Anakin do have this bond between them as master and apprentice. And, Obi-Wan says in Revenge of the Sith that he considered Anakin to be his brother, basically, so they do have that emotional bond, and through the Force. So I like that they're playing into that quite a bit. And then we cut to Nur, the moon of Nur, like you mentioned, where we go to Fortress Inquisitorius, first scene in Jedi Fallen Order. And Reva, the third sister, is interrogating Leia to find out where they're running this thing called the Path, which is basically the underground railroad for escaped Jedi. Doobie, what did you think of this interrogation scene?
So it was fun. It was cute to see Leia be her Leia self. I have an issue with children in being threatened to be tortured and something like this, just because it's not going to happen. And so there's no tension built up. There's a scene a little bit later, I'll show you here, where she's about to get pegged by the thingamajig, and she's not going to get pegged by the thingamajig. No one thinks she's going to get pegged by the thingamajig. But I do like the way they stopped it, using the old Rise of the Resistance, just on the verge of torture. The other person comes in and says, "Oh, you're needed immediately on the bridge," and then they have to take off. So that was a nice callback for us Rise of the Resistance fans who don't play video games.
Yeah, you mentioned that on our Slack channel, and I was really appreciative of that because I hadn't made that connection. But yeah, it is exactly the same as that moment when you're in the interrogation room in the First Order Star Destroyer, and Kylo Ren is like reaching out with the Force, and then Captain Hux or whatever comes in and takes him away. But yeah, definitely agree. Okay, do you have something else?
Mm-mm.
Okay, okay, let's talk about going back to the planet Jabim. We meet this group of freedom fighters, and these are the folks running the path. One of them is named Roken, one is named Sully, and one is named Wade. And they're hesitant at first to help out Obi-Wan. Roken says he doesn't want Obi-Wan there because basically he's got too much heat on him. And he doesn't want that much attention drawn to them, I guess. He doesn't want the Empire finding out about what they're up to. But he gives in pretty quickly to Obi-Wan's request for him to help out because his wife, he says, was also, basically he implies that his wife was also either a Jedi or Force sensitive or whatever and was taken by the Inquisitors. So he's going to help them plan the incursion to the fortress. Chris, what did you think of these new characters and the whole planning scene?
I enjoyed it because I like seeing new characters who are rebel characters and stuff, people that we've never seen before or heard of. I was pleasantly surprised to see Ice Cube's son, O'Shea Jackson, doing that role. I remember when that scene came on, I said, "Is that O'Shea Jackson?" Yeah, so that's cool to see him in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
But also, just to know that like there's still people out there who are willing to help,
Yeah, absolutely.
Still fighting the fight.
I like these guys a lot. I actually would have, and maybe we're going to get it because they did end up back here, but I would love to see a lot more of these. I would even love an episode more or less set and just learning more about them and, how they're going about the stuff they have to do. Because I found them to be really, really interesting.
Yeah, well, I feel like you're right. They are kind of a fledgling rebellion. Now, the rebellion isn't quite what we know it to be later on in the timeline, but I wouldn't be terribly surprised if one of these characters shows up in the Andor series coming out later this summer, because that takes place, I want to say like 7 or 8 years after this series. So it would be nice to check in again on Doken, or sorry, what's his name? Yeah, Roken, sorry, Roken, to check on him a little bit further down the timeline again. And yeah, I thought it was funny that O'Shea Jackson Jr. has been tweeting a bunch about how happy he is to be in the Star Wars universe. It's always cool to see people who are enthusiastic getting to act in a show like this. So we cut back to Nur, where Obi-Wan and Tala, the spy in the Empire, the Imperial officer who's a spy, they're like flying toward the fortress Inquisitorius on the moon of Nur. And you see Obi-Wan, he's kind of like trying to use the Force to draw this object closer to him, and he's struggling with it a little bit. So he's still having trouble connecting fully to the Force, and he's still recovering from those injuries that he got in the previous episode. And then Tala drops Obi-Wan off somewhere we don't really see, and then she goes into the fortress, and she has to get through the security, and she's basically just relying on her status as an Imperial officer to get into this building, which does end up working, although there's a little bit of tension there. And then we cut to Obi-Wan basically like swimming in through this underwater. Yeah, there you go. Through the underwater tunnel. I loved after he comes up through this like moon pool in the fortress, and there's like one stormtrooper who confronts him there, and he like drags him into the room, and then we cut to like the door opening, and stormtroopers just like floating face down in the water. I just love that. Yeah.
Not for the last time in this episode.
Right.
Right.
One thing I found disturbing is this was the view of Obi-Wan going through the water here. The last time I saw Obi-Wan doing this, the water was much cleaner and much less triggering. So whatever technology is allowing them to have dirty water, they can get rid of it.
Yes, of course. The technology he's using to breathe is called a rebreather, and we did see both Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon Jinn use that in Phantom Menace, which is a cool callback to the prequel trilogy there. So we get more of the interrogation of Leia by Riva, and there's a little bit with Lola, the little droid, the little disc-shaped droid that Leia carries around with her. And Riva talks about how she used to have a droid herself growing up, but it was taken away from her like everything else was. And then, obviously later on in the episode, we find out a little bit more about what's really going on in this scene. So it's kind of interesting to go back and like see, because she, spoilers, but she's like planting a tracking device on the droid in that moment. So pay attention there. There's more of Obi-Wan sneaking around. And then we get that part of Leia in the torture chair that you mentioned earlier, Doobie, where that's not really ever going to happen. Although it does happen to Han Solo in The Empire Strikes Back, but he's an adult male.
So, Moses' character,
Riva, yes.
Riva has trouble getting what she wants out of little Leia. Does Riva know that Leia is force sensitive and particularly strong?
I don't believe so, or I feel like she would be taking a different approach.
Yeah.
Okay. It just seems like she'd be quite shocked that she couldn't get what she wanted out of a 7-year-old or 10-year-old.
Yeah.
But
I think
clearly failed.
My interpretation of that is that Riva just thinks that Leia is like particularly strong-willed. I think if she had an inkling that she was force sensitive or force powerful, they would be more aggressive toward her.
Okay.
I don't know. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I feel like that too. I feel like she would be more of interest to the Inquisitors if she was force sensitive. And not to mention, they've pretty much been either kidnapping or killing anybody who is force sensitive.
Yes.
So I feel like that would be an automatic like red flag for for Riva.
Yeah, I love that. Go ahead, Doobie.
I was going to say, I had a note that I forgot to mention. I did like when she was interrogating her that Leia comes back with, "Is this a staring contest?"
Right.
Another line that go ahead, Chris.
No, I was going to say that's kind of almost a little bit of a callback to Poe in Force Awakens, where he's like, "Who talks first, me or you?"
And we know that Poe Dameron was heavily influenced by Leia Organa, so definitely a connection there. Another line that I really liked, kind of going back to the planet Jabim and the character of Roken, when Obi-Wan asks him for help, he says, like, "I need help," and Roken says, "So does every kid who can move a rock with his mind," or something, "from here to Coruscant." And I just thought, okay, this is a great way to tell us like what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get into this. This is the big reveal of this episode, and Obi-Wan's kind of still sneaking around, and he stumbles across what the Inquisitors are keeping in the lower levels of this fortress, and it's basically rows and rows of these chambers that have either Jedi, what I'm interpreting as either Jedi or Force users, encased in something that looks like amber to me. I believe only one of these characters is identifiable by name. I was looking into it. I don't know if anyone has identified any of the other ones, but the first one we see up close, the kind of dog-faced guy, his name is Terra Sinube, and he is a character from the Clone Wars animated series. But Chris, did you notice anybody else that like jumped out at you, or do you think these are all just kind of supposed to be like nameless other Force users?
I feel like they're just nameless other Force users. It would be interesting to see if any of them have like a connection later on. But we do see that youngling there, so
right. I think people have pointed out also that the youngling we see, who's one of the last Jedi that Obi-Wan looks at up close, I think it's also one of the younglings that we see in the first episode of Obi-Wan Kenobi, in that flashback to Order 66 when they're all fleeing the Jedi temple on Coruscant. So there's something going on there. I think we're going to get more of that story, because like I've said in previous episodes of Who's the Bossk, I do think that Riva is also one of those younglings that escaped. I don't know. Do you agree with that, Chris? Yeah,
I do agree with. There's little bits and pieces that I'm seeing about her that I'm like, there's something more here.
yeah. I think we're going to get more information in the last couple episodes that are coming out. What about you, Doobie? Did you what did you think when we first saw these characters as a more casual Star Wars fan? Let's put it that way. What did you think? What did you think these people were that were all encased in this material?
I mean, I assumed they were Jedi. Once I realized Rebecca didn't sit on the remote and switch us over to Independence Day, I assumed they were Jedi, and I just kept looking. I had to recognize one of these things to, make it obvious for people like me. So I was surprised to find out that there weren't any obvious Jedi in here. So it was creepy. It's quite creepy. Are they dead? I mean, when they kill Jedi, they cut them in half. Are these the originals? Are these some kind of clone? What are we looking at here?
My assumption was that they are dead, but they are being preserved for some reason. Now, my mind immediately, when I saw the color of the material that they're being held in, my mind immediately went to Amber and Jurassic Park and the mosquito, because we know that at this point, based on what we've seen in the Bad Batch, Emperor Palpatine is already running his little cloning operation. So I believe this is why they're keeping these Jedi around, is for experiments and advancing the whole cloning technology. That would be my guess. I don't think they're still alive or can be revived in any way. And I think that's why they chose the color that they did, because, if they were encased in like blue liquid or something, we would think, oh, they're in Bacta and they're being preserved alive. But no, I think they're dead and they're just being kept for their genetic material. Does that make sense?
Potentially.
Okay. Awesome. So that's that room, that secret room that they're keeping in Fortress Inquisitorius. It's very intriguing to find out. Hopefully we'll find out more about what's going on there. The remainder of the episode, there's a conversation between Riva and Tala. Like you said, Riva gets called away before she can really torture Leia, and then there's this confrontation between the character of Tala and Riva, where Riva basically accused her of being a spy, which she's right, but Tala pretends like she's being a spy in favor of the Empire and trying to figure out where this whole path thing is being run so they can go in and take them all down. Then there's a great action scene, like I said, with Obi-Wan fighting the stormtroopers that really reminded me of Jedi Fallen Order, where he's like deflecting the blaster bolts. This is one of those scenes that I feel like you could watch over and over again.
I was trying to understand, is he getting better as this fight goes on? It felt like to me in the beginning he was definitely out of practice, and then as it went on, he was able to like deflect it back at a stormtrooper right where he wanted it to go. He did one of the backward deflections. So was he getting better as this fight went on?
To me, that was definitely the implication. What did you think, Chris?
Yeah, I think it was a little bit of muscle memory coming back. He was like, "Oh wait, I know this. I know how to do this," and you could definitely see that as the fight was going on. So, yeah, I'd have to agree.
He's learning the controls.
Yeah,
if he's playing the video game.
A-B.
Yeah.
What buttons jump?
Then we get that great scene where the hallway window gets fractured in the fight, and they start worrying about it. The glass breaking and the water coming in, and Obi-Wan just kind of holds it back. And then once Leia and Tala are able to get out of the hallway, he kind of lets it go, and the whole thing floods and takes out the stormtroopers. And this guy shows up for the first time in live action.
Yes.
Us Jedi Fallen Order fans will recognize the Purge Trooper. Was actually introduced in the Darth Vader comic books, but then carried over to the Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order video game, and now showed up in this episode for the first time in live action. So that was really cool. What do you think of that guy, Chris? You a fan?
Yeah, and I was actually, when I was watching this scene, I was like, man, these guys were everywhere in the game on this level. And I'm like, where are they now? But then when I saw the one there, I was like, oh, okay, all right, we're recognizing.
Yeah, when I bought the game, I had pre-ordered the deluxe edition, which came with this Black Series figure, and I'm really glad. Again, I'm glad that I bought it because it feels more important now that it's been in the TV show.
I do want to talk about real quick. When Obi-Wan rescues Leia.
Yes, let's get there.
And that scene right there was so good, because when the lights go out and then all you see is the saber come on, I was like, that is a very well edited scene. I was like, I like this a lot.
Yeah, I thought that was awesome too. And yeah, going back to the cinematographer, I just love the way this show looks. And I think they're really knocking it out of the park with stuff like that. So yeah, totally agreed. And I think you were really into this scene too, weren't you, Doobie?
I totally love this scene. I'm a big fan of water. So doing the flood, and you knew it was coming, and it was just so cool once he executed. Seeing the floating stormtroopers was really cool. The one thing that bothered me, so this show has stuff that just seems so dumb. There are times where Leia runs by the people trying to catch her, and she's literally right next to them, but they don't bother to reach for her. Or when when Obi-Wan and Leia have to disable the laser instead of just go around it.
Yeah.
Why would they build this place that can so easily be breached by a laser blast? I'm surprised the windows aren't just a little bit stronger. I'm sure they have the tech for that. That's a little or don't let them carry guns, because otherwise you're going to destroy the place. Right.
It's one of those things where, like, I think the answer would be like, it's as strong as the plot needs it to be.
Exactly.
I know, like, you go ahead, Chris.
Well, I was going to say, not only, the glass thing, but I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure Cal Kestis in Fallen Order gets into the fortress by swimming, just like Obi-Wan did.
I think he does. Yeah.
Right. And so Fallen Order takes place 5 years earlier. So you would think that they would have said, hey, wait a minute. We got to fix this. How did this guy get in here in the first place? And 5 years later, Obi-Wan does the same thing.
These are the same people that built 2-3 Death Stars. So it takes them a while.
They're slow learners, the Empire. So speaking of little nitpicks, we've gotten up to the thing that I kind of turned my nose up at and was kind of frustrated with. I thought it was a little silly, and that's the old trench coat trick where they put Leia under like this long trench coat that Obi-Wan is wearing. And I do give them credit for, they actually had another Imperial character in the background of one of these shots wearing one of those trench coats. So I felt like, okay, at least this is something that they're used to seeing around this base. But I don't know if I believe that they could walk past all these stormtroopers and Imperial officers, and Obi-Wan has like 2 of his legs and 2 tiny little legs walking next to him. I don't know. Chris, did this bother you?
It did. I was like, okay, this was an easy cop out. Part of me actually even thought of, I know it's not a comedy. The show is not a comedy at all. But it reminded me of Austin Powers, when Austin Powers is on Mini-Me's shoulders and all you see are Mini-Me's little legs, and Austin Powers is like, and I was like, that would have been a better way to escape and more comical, but obviously not the type of show for that. But it definitely gave me like a little like, nobody sees this at all.
Yeah, I attributed it to the Force. In my review, I was like, I can chalk this up to he's using the Force influencing the minds of people around him. That's the only way it makes sense to me. Doobie, were you able to go along with this?
I don't know why, but this didn't bother me, because I'm looking and I'm like, I should be seeing her legs, but I had a hard time seeing her legs for whatever reason. So I'm like, if I'm having a hard time, they're having a hard time. They're busy. They're running to and fro, hither and yon. They've got stuff to do.
And there were go ahead.
Well, I would have liked at least one little scene of somebody coming up to them and then him just, doing a Jedi mind trick and being like, you don't see anything. And then them going back. And I would have been like, okay, that explains it.
Sure.
Like,
yeah, I agree with you there. There were a couple shots where I noticed like Tala was kind of standing and like walking in between where Obi-Wan was and where the officers were. So that kind of disguised them a little bit. Those shots helped me believe what was going on. But overall, I thought it was kind of a silly idea. And yeah, a little bit of a lazy way to get them out of the fortress.
I also figure the higher ups in the Empire, they have like riders, like a famous actor or rock band where you're not supposed to look at them when they're on stage. So people are intentionally just like looking the other way.
Right. Okay, I believe it. We'll put that in a novel. Lucasfilm can put it in a novel, and it'll all make sense in the end. Okay, so there's the big final confrontation out on the landing platform where Reva shows up and calls them out, and they immediately spin around and reveal that Leia's under the trench coat. And it looks like they're captured, but then we get the Deus Ex Machina of the air speeders showing up, which is fine. This is part of the plan. They had this backup ready to go. And you guys know these ships from The Empire Strikes Back. Of course, they were the snow speeders, also called air speeders. And they come in and blast a bunch of the stormtroopers, and they're firing at Reva, and she's blocking the bolts with her lightsaber, which was pretty cool. And then they get away. Obi-Wan and Leia jump in one of the speeders, and then the second speeder flown by the character named Wade gets blown up when Reva kind of throws this explosive crate at it, which I know Wade is already a meme on Star Wars Twitter. Everybody's very upset about Wade's death. What did you guys think of this part of the episode?
This scene is interesting to me, and the reason it's interesting to me is because we see the male Inquisitor. I can't remember his name.
I think that's the fifth brother.
Fifth brother. Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
So we see him enter, and he kind of yells at Reva to stop them. And it's only then when she throws that explosive device.
Okay.
And that's what I was like, something's weird about you. Like you're playing this evil character, and we're seeing you're after all of these, you're after Obi-Wan and Leia, and like you're showing your evil side, but at the same time, like she hasn't done anything yet, to make me feel like she is truly evil.
Mm-hmm.
There's the interrogation scene where she almost seems conflicted about doing what she's about to do, like she doesn't want to do it. And then you see that last scene where she almost lets them get away until the fifth brother is like, hey, kill him, and then she does it.
Right.
So
I think that's a really astute observation. I know I have seen people theorizing that maybe Reva wants to find Obi-Wan and wants to find the path or whatever, so she herself can escape and get away from the Empire and Darth Vader and stuff like that. So I think that's definitely a possibility. Have you picked up on anything like that, Doobie, as a watcher?
My wife thinks that Reva, this whole story will be a redemptive arc for Reva, that she's not actually going to end up being a bad guy. That would disappoint me so much.
Yeah.
But everything you guys are saying certainly leads to that. I looked at this. This to me was great Reva. She is not looking like a person here who's ready to be redeemed. So I prefer to have this Reva to the other. And I've been critical of her acting. I know there's been a lot going on with Moses and her acting in this show. I think the way she delivers dialogue to me is so anachronistic. It just does not feel like it's in the Star Wars universe, and that continues to bug me. But I do like the fact that she is quite evil. And this look here to me is some really nice acting. When I was going through it again, this just really struck me as she's good. I just don't like the way she delivers dialogue.
Fair enough. Yeah, I have enjoyed her. I could see that criticism though. Yeah, that sometimes bugs me as well when it sounds like the lines or the delivery is not quite of the Star Wars universe. It
Right.
hasn't jumped out at me with Riva, but that has bothered me in the past as well. So the last couple scenes of this episode, we get that angry Vader scene storming in, angry that they got away. He force chokes Riva, lifts her up in the air. This is so sweet. And then she says that she planted a tracking device on the ship, which is a reveal there. And it's a commonly used trope in Star Wars storytelling, the old tracking device. And then we cut to the ship where Obi-Wan and Leia have escaped with the other freedom fighters. And there's a little shot of the droid Lola emitting this blinking red light. So yeah, Lola is the tracking device, or has the tracking device. What are your interpretations of this, Chris? What did you think of the very end of this episode?
I was very much like, okay, it's classic Star Wars.
Yeah.
Another kind of a little cop out, like how are they going to find them now? Oh, we'll just use a tracking device. But I thought it was clever to use Leia's droid that she always keeps on her, obviously. Yeah. And I think this is going to lead to some crazy conflict coming up. So whether it's with Vader and Obi-Wan, or Riva and Obi-Wan, or maybe new characters and the Inquisitors. So
yeah, one of the things I really like about this series so far, kind of in contrast to the Book of Boba Fett, is that I think in every episode they've visited a different planet or a different location. Like they keep the variety of the locations keeps changing, and I really like that. So I hope that we get between episodes 5 and 6. I hope that we get a couple more different planets, or I'm not sure where the climax is going to take place, but I hope it's something fresh and new that we haven't seen before. What about you, Doobie? Did you like the end of this episode?
The Darth Vader, because I like this episode so much I forgot Darth Vader was a part of this show, and then to have him show up like that was just the best. And to do the Force choke and to give some classic Vader lines, I have underestimated you. Chris probably could pull out his thing and do that a lot better. But, it was great. And then of course the very classic Lola sitting there, and then the red light comes on. So cliched, but so perfect for Star Wars. It was great.
That's a good description of a lot of Star Wars. So cliched, but so good. Let's talk about the cast a little bit. Returning cast from previous episodes. You got Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan, Indira Varma as Tala Durith, Vivian Lyra Blair as Leia, Moses Ingram as Riva, Sung Kang as the fifth brother, Raya Kildstedt plays the fourth sister, and then the combination of James Earl Jones with the voice and Hayden Christensen with the body, I believe. We're still not sure what combination that is, but they both combined to play Darth Vader. And then the new or guest cast members were, as you mentioned, O'Shea Jackson Jr. from Straight Outta Compton played Roken. Maya Erskine from the show Pen 15 plays Sully. I know that's a very popular cult comedy show. I have not seen it myself. Ryder McLaughlin from Jonah Hill's movie, the mid-90s, played Wade, R.I.P. Wade, gone too soon. And then the other thought that I had that I wanted to ask you guys about this episode is I did really enjoy it. I did say it's my favorite of Obi-Wan so far, but it felt very familiar, both in a, tropey kind of way, but also specifically to the Mandalorian episode, the season 2 finale, where they go in to rescue Grogu off the Moff Gideon's Star Cruiser, Light Cruiser, whatever. And then also reminded me quite a bit in bits and pieces of the original Star Wars movie when they're rescuing Leia off the Death Star. I don't know. Did you feel that way, Chris? Did this remind you or feel a little too reminiscent of some of those stories to you?
It did, but it also made me really I really enjoyed that. About this episode, because it kind of shows you why Leia is just so nonchalant about the Empire when she gets taken in episode 4.
Yeah.
And she's just like, oh, Lord Vader, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, I don't care. I'm not going to tell you where anybody is. And it's like, when you saw episode 4, you were like, oh, she's like a tough chick. She's not a pushover or whatever. But now we're seeing why she's not a pushover, because she doesn't really fear the Empire because they haven't really given her a reason to.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, they're
other than
kind
that
of
interrogation scene.
yeah, they're a lot of bark and no bite, really, I guess, because
Right.
they're in the end their plans just kind of always fall apart, I
Yeah.
guess. What about you, Doobie? Did that jump out at you at all?
How are they so successful then if they can actually do anything? It didn't. The only thing that jumped out to me was the prison episode of The Mandalorian.
Okay.
Of its relentlessness, but it doesn't matter. I love heist movies and I
Yeah.
love heist episodes, and it was fantastic. Didn't bother me at all. They can do it again next week, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I think I do really love both of those episodes, the prisoner one from The Mandalorian, and this episode. And I think because they tell you what's going to happen, and this is the structure of a heist movie. Exactly. They tell you what's going to happen. They go and do it. And then it's over. And you're like, oh, I'm satisfied. They did it. They had obstacles along the way. There were little bits of trouble and somebody dies and then they're successful. And it's satisfying in that way. So, yeah, I totally agree. And it was just so well choreographed and staged, and the action was exciting and stuff. So no big complaints other than the trench coat thing, I would say, from me. Any other moments that you want to mention, either of you, from this episode that we haven't touched on yet, or anything you would like to talk about part 4 of Obi-Wan Kenobi? Chris?
No, I think we touched all the bases, and I'm just interested to see where we go next week.
Okay. Speaking of that, do you have anything specific that you're hoping happens or that we see in the final 2 episodes?
Well, obviously, I want to know more about Reva. I want to know what her story is. So I would love to see that. I would love to see, what is it? Why the people are frozen in that amber.
Yeah.
I would love for an explanation for that. And then also, I would really love an explanation on the Grand Inquisitor.
Oh, yes.
And this is something that, a lot of people I know have been talking about, because if you watched, I think it was Rebels.
Yes.
He dies a different way.
You're right.
So, is that going to be a post-credit scene? Are we going to,
I feel like, yeah, there has to be more to it. I will say that I will be shocked if they don't address it in any way in these last 2 episodes, because there are people at Lucasfilm whose job it is to pay attention to the continuity and everything. There's no way they would bring the Grand Inquisitor into this series and have him die earlier than when he's supposed to die in Rebels. Like they know what's going on. So I think that you're right, that I'm hoping that we will get a little bit more of an explanation.
They're not just going to go,
yeah,
oops, we made a boo-boo.
Right.
I would love it for that.
Yeah, me too. Hoping they get to that. What about you, Doobie? What are you expecting or hoping for in the final 2?
I like that this is a relatively small story. This is, it's important. You're saving Princess Leia, but in the scheme of the galaxy, this is a small story. I really hope it stays that way, that it doesn't veer off into something way too big. And I hope it concludes. I want to see her delivered back to her papa, and they hug, and life goes on, as opposed to some big cliffhanger that we have to wait till episode 10 or I don't know. But I would like to see it conclude.
Yeah, I think this was intended as a limited series, so I think we're going to see a conclusion to that storyline. I think we all know that Leia ends up back on Alderaan with Bail and Bria Organa, for at least another 9 years, till that planet goes bye-bye. But I like you. I like that this is a smaller scale, kind of tighter story, and it's going to get wrapped up. And I'm looking forward to these final 2 episodes. And I think that's going to wrap up our discussion of Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi Part 4. And that's going to bring us to our final segment here on Who's the Bossk, called First Steps into a Larger World. And this is where we talk about the media that we've been consuming and or enjoying outside of Star Wars. My example this week is I watched a documentary on HBO called George Carlin's American Dream. And this is a 3.5-hour documentary by Judd Apatow, who's done a few of these docs about different comedians over the years. And I enjoyed it quite a bit. I'd heard a lot of these stories before. I'd seen a lot of this footage before, but it was presented in a nice, enjoyable, entertaining way. And I always enjoy just watching George Carlin do what he does, which is always very funny and insightful. So, Chris, anything that you've been watching, reading, playing that you want to talk about?
Well, the Orville.
Right.
I'm excited that that's back, because that, went on hiatus for a couple of years now. So I'm excited that that's back. It's, I fell in love with it when it first came on, and I'm still in love with it now. Like, that show is, it's very weird, because you think of Seth MacFarlane and doing a space show, you're going to be like, oh, it's going to be Family Guy in space. And it's so not that.
Yeah.
And that's such a breath of fresh air. So yeah, that's my big thing, really.
So I've heard that the Orville is kind of the antidote to the newer Star Trek stuff that's been on Paramount Plus, because I have friends who are really big Star Trek fans. I'm a casual Star Trek fan, kind of probably like on the level that Doobie is a Star Wars fan, except I haven't watched any of the new Star Trek stuff because I haven't heard anything good about it. If I heard good things, I would go and check it out. But everybody's like, new Star Trek's not that great on Paramount Plus. But this show, The Orville, that Seth MacFarlane's doing, is kind of like a love letter to the next generation, and it's very much in that tone. Would you say that's accurate?
I would say that's 100% accurate. I think I actually said that in my article.
Okay.
Literally, not word for word, but it does feel very next generation. Like, I grew up watching that with my dad. And that was like the big Star Wars show that I watched when I was little and everything, or Star Trek. And so watching this show, I really get that sense, because like they do that, like that 90s cliffhanger, like right before a commercial kind of scene, where it's like, it gives you that dramatic music and then it cuts, and then you're like, wow, what? And you got to wait for the commercials. And then, I mean, now that it's on Hulu, we don't have to worry about commercials. So we can keep going with the story. And it's nice that it's on Hulu too, because I mentioned this as well. They are now allowed to use a little bit of profanity here and there, which, doesn't take or add anything, but it's, it does give a little bit of emotion to the characters. So yeah.
Yeah. This is a show that's been on my list to watch for a long time. So thank you for the recommendation. I think I'm going to probably check it out sometime soon. What about you, Doobie? Anything you've been enjoying lately?
Not George Carlin, not Orville, but I just finished watching a couple weeks ago Ozark, which I started watching about a couple months ago, because I think I watched the pilot when it first came out and like, and then I heard it was so good that I wouldn't check it out again. I'm like, I must have been, not smart at the time, because it is in my top 5 all-time shows. I personally liked it more than Breaking Bad. Which it's often compared to. I like the fact that the main character never, to me at least, seems to go over the edge of being a bad guy. He always so wants to be good, but there's only so good he can be given everything going on. Whereas I feel like at some point Walt just goes, screw it, I'm the other side now. And I'm a big fan of Jason Bateman, my good buddy Jason Bateman. I say that because we went to high school, even though we only talked once. And I loved it. I'm glad I got to kind of see it all at once. That was really fun. And that's it.
Now, when you went to high school with Jason Bateman, was he already on the Hogan Family?
Oh, he has long. I mean, he was on. I think that was after Hogan Family. He had already done like Silver Spoons. I mean, he was definitely. I went to a high school with a lot of child actors and children of actors, so it wasn't that unusual.
Oh, that must have been around here then.
I went to high school in West Hollywood.
Okay.
The school that no longer exists, a small private school. But I remember it was he was a year behind me, and it was senior award day, and I won a few awards. And then I went to the bathroom. He was in the restroom too, and he's like, he said something like "congratulations" or "good job" or something like that. And so, me and Jason Bateman were like this.
Teen Wolf 2 himself.
Exactly. Yeah, he's a great actor, though. He is, and I mean, he partially created the show too, right? Dude's a genius.
cool.
That is some good work.
The list of TV shows that I need to watch is just getting longer and longer and longer. But Ozark is definitely on there too, and I like Jason Bateman as well. So yeah, eventually, if I ever am laid up, I have a broken leg or something, I'll get through it. That's going to bring us to the end of this week's episode of Who's the Boss. I want to thank my guest, Chris Rex, for coming and chatting with me about Obi-Wan Kenobi. Chris, thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'd love to come back. So keep me in mind.
Yeah, for sure. I would have responded more if you had done it in the Darth Vader voice, though.
Oh, well, I can do that. Bring me back to the dark side.
That is
Perfect.
good.
It's really
Thank
good.
you.
Really good. If Lodico ever needs to meet Vader, you've got that covered.
Well, I discovered at Star Wars Celebration that my friend Jordy does an amazing.
Yeah, I need to start making TikTok videos. So
Totally.
I discovered that my friend Jordy does this amazing impression of Werner Herzog in The Mandalorian. So now I want to have him on this podcast as the character, the client from The Mandalorian, just doing some kind of bit or sketch. So maybe we'll bring you on as Darth Vader too.
oh, perfect.
And then I want to thank Doobie Mosley for being the tech person and putting up all the images like rapid fire. That was amazing. Doobie, thank you for chatting as well and giving your thoughts about Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Thank you for allowing me to join the High Priest Lord of Star Wars knowledge.
You're very welcome. And that's the end of this week's episode of Who's the Bossk. As always, please visit laughingplace.com for all your Disney news and opinions. We'll be right back here next week for a discussion of Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi, episode 5. Until then, thank you so much for listening. See you real soon. My name's Mike Celestino. Bye.
Oh, shoot. I forgot I have something to do here. I'll just watch.